Hello everyone. Today's project is going to be for your keepsakes, for things that you need some sort of protective box or something to keep it in that is disguised. It's a project that I've been meaning to do for a while and I just kept putting it off, so I finally got around to doing it. The main thing you're going to need is you're going to need a very large book. Preferably one that you don't care about, because we're going to glue the pages and cut out shapes. What I mean is, I have keepsakes that for the obvious reason, religious items you really don't want to necessarily leave out for whenever you have guests. There's a pretty good chance they're possibly not of the same religion, and it could be offensive. So things like that. Even personal items that you want to have close to you and on hand, but not necessarily sitting out in the open. So this is a way of disguising the container of these objects. And mine just so happens to be in a medical encyclopedia. It's a dictionary. But encyclopedias work just as well. You can always go to a local bookstore. I know they're far and few between, but they are still there. If there aren't any physically near you, online, I know Amazon, a lot of those little bookstores have an account, so you can often find them there. So you want to make sure that your book is the right thickness for the largest object you would like to put in there. My crystal prism is rather large. And so I needed to make sure that the spine of the book was going to be big enough. And it is. It's just big enough to house it. And that is the largest item that I have. So depending on what you plan on keeping inside it will depend on how large the book needs to be. And so you just want to sort out everything you're going to need first. And then what you're going to do is inside the book, let's see if I can cover the light source here. So inside the book, I'm going to have the first couple of pages I'm going to leave alone. They tend to open and close on their own anyway, free with the spine. So it'll be on this first part that I'll draw the shapes, and I'm going to lay the objects that I want to use directly on it so that I can trace out what I will be cutting and just kind of plan the page. Then what I'm going to do is, before I cut anything, I'm going to start gluing the pages together. And I'm going to go, tedious work, one by one, paint them with glue, and then put it down and do the next, and the next, and the next, and so forth. And so that all of these pages are going to be done. The trick to keeping it looking authentic, do not glue all the way to the edge. Just want to do like a border, just in case the glue that you use has a slight tint or a color, so it doesn't show here, so that on the outside the pages appear to be free, so that it looks natural. So when you have it on your shelf, it looks like any regular ordinary book. We'll also be putting a magnet inside the cover so that it doesn't flap open. Depending on what you want to keep in here, we'll decide on your shape. You could do a big rectangle. I won't, because the minute it sits upright, everything inside is going to come crashing down to the bottom. And I have stones and, my crystal and delicate things that I really don't want mashing around into each other. So it's better if you do separate compartments. So you're going to need your objects. You're going to need a book of the right size. You're going to need your glue. I'm using a decoupage glue, you can see with the glare. Elmer's is kind of, how would I say, it's stiff, it's crusty, it's not a good consistency, so this is probably better. I haven't used it yet though, so in case it turns out to be awful, I'm assuming it's better than that because of the purpose it's meant for. It is meant for this. So it should do well. It's about $7 for this giant container that I will not use all of. So invite a friend and split the cost. Let's see. So my items, my glue, my book. If you have a box cutter, perfect. If you don't, An X-Acto knife will work. A knife will work. I suggest you sharpen it. Scissors probably will not work well. Even if you were to split them in half, it could just, I don't know. See if you have the other things first. Box cutter, perfect. Do that. And your magnet. And a metal piece for it to stick to. And that's it. And then I'm just going to start gluing my pages. I won't bore you with that. It's very boring. Once that's all done, I'll show you the next step. So I was having a bit of trouble doing it page by page. It turns out that these pages are more like tissue paper. It's not like a regular book where the weight of the paper is at a good weight where it can handle gluing. This one isn't like that. The tissue paper really doesn't handle the gluing very well at all. And I'm going to have to try something else. This is something I haven't tried before, but I wanted to make my little contraption first before I showed you. So here's the book. I just put a rubber band to keep the pages that I didn't want getting into the glue separate in case they decide to flop in. But you can see here, I'm just using the pot to hold it upright. But this is actually a very large gallon bag that I've cut the top off of. And then I taped these skewers to either side so that it would hold it open for me. And if I lift up, well, actually you can kind of see it right there. There's the bag. So if I lift this side, you can kind of see in there. I also wrapped another rubber band around these pages just to make sure that they stay together and they don't start to float apart as they hit the glue. They might start to, you know, do this, and that would just make an awful mess. So I want to make sure that they stay together. And that's it. I'm going to actually take it back out of the plastic, put the glue into the plastic. I'll probably thin it with a little bit of water so that it's not so thick. And then dip the book in, and then I can use my fingers with the plastic to kind of mush it and make sure that all the pages are in there. And then I can kind of wring it and make sure that the glue comes back out of the pages as I lift the book back out. And then I can leave it to dry with the, not this side, but this side closed. So I'll lay it on its side with this part open because I don't want it touching the glue. So it'll be like the first few pages open with the book laying there, and that's how I think I'll leave it to dry like that, laying down. And we'll see if it works, and I'll show you. So the gluing went pretty well, actually, a lot easier than I thought. I thought I would have to mix water with the glue, but I didn't have to. I just, with the bag, I was able to push the glue all around with my fingers and press it into the pages and get it on the sides. So it actually went pretty well. And then when I pulled it out, it seemed to kind of strain itself. So that was nice too. I laid it down, and you see this contraption I have going on here, and I'll explain. Actually, these tissues are covering, so you can't really see. I laid down some wax paper or parchment to keep the glue in case it seeps. And then I have a paper towel. So you can see here, actually, yes, there it is. So I went with paper towel and went around the edges and cleaned it up. I have the Q-tip. Actually, you probably don't want it laying right up against it. I didn't mean for that to happen. I used the Q-tip to get these little tabs because they were full of glue when I wiped it. And of course I wiped all the edges to get it fairly clean, but it is saturated. You can't tell because the glue is white, but it is soaking through and through with glue, which is what I wanted. And I have another layer of the wax paper here to protect this part of the book from the first few pages. Now, why the plank of wood? Because you do have to press it down, otherwise the pages will warp. Anytime they feel moisture, they warp. It doesn't matter if it's glue or if it's water, it will happen the same way. So you have to keep pressure on it. If you have a rectangular pan, you could just lay that instead. I didn't have one that was big enough. You want to span the entire distance because you want even pressure. If I didn't have this board and I just put the pot, this is cast iron by the way, so it's a lot of pressure. If I just put the pot, I would get a ring in the end around it where it pushed harder there and not on the sides, so the sides would kind of fold up a little bit. So that's why I really need something rigid to span the distance. And again, if you have a pan, like a cookie pan, that would work out. I just don't. In my case, I have this, it's actually shelving. So if you have some cabinets and something that's easy to take off, like you have cans or things like that, you can clear it and use that shelf to lay down instead. But it's up to you, and it depends on what you have. So now it's the waiting game. I'm just going to wait for it to dry. And most likely it's going to be 24 hours, so it's going to be a good while. But in the meantime, I do feel confident that it's going to be okay. However, I will continue to check on it and make sure that there is no glue dribbling. That looks like there's a little bit built up. Oh, wow. This is already feeling like it's dry. Amazing. It may be, well, I don't want to say because it's the outside. The inside's probably still soaking wet. But so far so good. So I'm just going to keep an eye on it and make sure that there's nothing dribbling. And that's it. I'll show you when it's done.